Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming today. I'm very happy to be here to speak with social work students. And I'm going to give you sort of a very short crash course in writing a good resume, writing a very effective cover letter. We'll talk a little bit about interviewing, but also job posting websites. So if I go too fast or you have a question along the way, please don't be shy about stopping me. So, as I mentioned, this is what we're going to cover. And I'm assuming, is everyone here graduating May 2019? Raise your hand if you are. May 2019. Okay, good. So this information I said here would apply whether you're launching a search for an internship or a full-time job. Obviously, you folks are in the full-time job realm. I do recommend looking for full-time jobs as opposed to applying to post-graduation internships. I don't think that those are very effective. You want to start working, earning a living wage, and getting benefits, hopefully. So let's focus on our full-time job situation. And the resume has got to come first. Everybody's good at stuff, right? But we have to say how and what we're good at in particular. So if I were going to give you a pop quiz and I was going to ask you, on average, how long do you think it takes an employer to look at your resume when they're scanning a whole bunch? Say they get a pile of resumes for a job and they are looking through the pile. Are they going to spend a minute on your resume? Would they spend 30 seconds? Would they spend 5 minutes? Or would they spend 2 minutes? Any ideas? Yes?
Probably less than 30 seconds.
Less than 30 seconds, okay. So you would add E 15 seconds? How many people think that it would be a minute? Raise your hand. Okay, a couple people. How about 30 seconds? About half the room. How about 5 minutes? 2 minutes? You're actually right. It's 30 seconds. So you have to grab their attention. I think it would be at least 30. I don't think it would be 15 seconds, but I was being facetious. But yeah, 30 seconds is pretty much all you have. That's your window of time to get their attention. So what exactly is a resume? It's a marketing document. This is not an autobiography. You are not writing your life story. You're not getting really exhaustive. You're not using the first person pronoun. You're writing short, pithy little fragments to get their attention, as we mentioned. So you're going to talk about obvious things like your education, work experience, and skills. You're not going to talk about your hobbies, what you do in your free time. Probably not a good idea. Again, you have a lot of competition, very short window of time. Say what you need to say and then stop. They're going to move on. So you want to think of this resume as either a 1-page or it could be 2 pages, an advertisement about you that you would run in the newspaper. Again, you're going to think about what you'd be selling to your employer. So you want to make sure that you assess your interests, skills, abilities, and experiences. They could be volunteer experiences. They could be paid experiences. An employer typically does not care whether you got paid for an experience or not. What they're looking for is what skills did you use, what accomplishments did you achieve. You might be a volunteer in a hospital setting. The fact that you're in a hospital setting says a lot about you there. Okay? So don't sweat it about, well, I didn't get paid for this, so I'm not going to write bullet points, right? You're going to write bullet points for anything that is meaningful to the jobs that you're applying to. And the whole point of writing a resume is to get an interview. That's the job of the resume. Once you get the interview, you know the resume has done its job. These are typical sections on a resume: contact info, your profile, education, etc. Some of these are required, some are optional. The profile is optional. You do not have to have one. Education is a must, obviously, your contact info, your skills, your experiences. By the end of my presentation, I'm going to give you a sample resume on paper, so you'll have it to take with you. Okay, so contact information, I said obviously, is a must. That comes first. Your name should be the biggest thing on the page, nice and bold. This is in 14-point font size, it's all capped. That's the name of what you're selling. You're not putting this information in the margin. And you're for sure not putting it on the bottom. You want it front and center, right? Other things on here, I do recommend either Times New Roman or Arial font. It looks more professional than some of the other fonts. And make sure that your email address sounds professional. The UIC address is probably a good one, but keep in mind that after 6 months, I believe, you have access no longer to your UIC account. So if you have a personal account that you're using, just make sure, again, it sounds professional. I had a student several years ago, I remember her like I saw her yesterday because she had on her resume the email address bowtome@yahoo.com. I had the same reaction and I said, well, you're really going to stand up to employers for the wrong reasons. So you want to be careful with this. The profile, as I mentioned, it is optional, but if you use it, definitely make sure it illustrates your brand. This could be an example. A certified MSW with experience in supporting individuals who have experienced the diminishment and death of family members due to disease, seeking opportunities in a hospital setting, fluent in both English and Spanish. That's it. A very short paragraph. You're not going to go on and on. Now that's paragraph style. There is also a bulleted list style if you prefer this. You could say that you assist patients and their families to overcome substance abuse, establish intervention methods to break addiction and follow a step-by-step recovery process, and aided in the rehab of 50-plus addicts with a relapse rate of only 4%. This one really stands out, doesn't it, from the other two? What's happening here that isn't happening in the other two? Yes?
Enumeration.
Yeah, the numbers, quantifying. 50 plus, 4%, that grabs my eye. Don't feel like you have to force a number. If you don't know, then don't make it up. Don't fudge it, okay? You don't want to be embarrassed later and not be able to back up what you're saying. But if you can incorporate numbers, it's a very strong and effective way to write your resume. Okay. Education, whether you have the profile or not, this has definitely got to be at the top of the resume. I see a lot of graduate students think that it goes at the bottom. That happens after you work your first full-time position after graduation, because then it becomes all about the experience. But right now, unless you've already worked as a full-fledged social worker, which I doubt, then you're going to put the education up toward the top. And it should be formatted similarly to this. UIC can be in bold type, and then definitely get the name of the college out there. It's very prestigious, I think, in my opinion, to go to Jane Addams. So definitely get Jane Addams' name on there. This student, my make-believe student, she's an MSW MPH. Notice this is a keyword. She is a candidate. She doesn't have it quite yet. So let's say you write your resume this weekend, you start sending out resumes, you're still a candidate right now. And then degree expected, they'll see it's going to happen soon, in a few weeks in May. GPA probably should go on the resume. We generally define it as 3-point or higher. It definitely should go on the resume. In graduate school, I know you have to have a pretty high GPA there. And then the licensure is next. This is one format to put that in the education section. There are other ways to do it though. You can have a separate section for licensure, or it could be within a certification and licensure section if you have multiple credentials. It's your choice. I know with the education part, the one on the previous screen, that way it's not getting lost. It's right up there, it's captured with your education. Okay, and then the undergrad degree goes next. So on a resume, we work chronologically, most current first, and then work our way back. So this person went to DePaul in the College of Science and Health. They got a Bachelor of Art degree in Psych. The GPA was about 3.0, so that gets listed. So definitely list the undergraduate degree. Okay, then that leads to experience. Formatting, definitely begin with the organization name in bold type, followed by the location, city, and state. Your job title probably should be in italics to set that off a little bit. And then the month and year of when you started and when you left. Here's an example. So you notice Gilda's Club, Chicago is in bold, location, intern is in italics, and then the dates. So experience, definitely in bullet point format. Remember that 30-second rule? This is where it comes down to crunch time. You have to tell them quickly and easily the things that you've done. Stick to one skill per bullet. You see a lot of students putting in 3, 5 skills in one bullet. It's trying to do too much. So make sure each one stands out. Begin each bullet with an action verb. And be concrete with the use of numbers, like we said, where appropriate. Here's an example, too, under Gilda's Club. So create, notice every first word, the verb create, provide, cultivate. Again, strong language to start with. So create and deliver social activities to help children and teens cope with the stress of ailing family members. Provide a supportive environment through counseling and small group therapy. And cultivate a supportive environment by welcoming clients into the office. You might think that this bullet point isn't very essential, like it's just something you use for filler. It's actually very important. You know, if you're creating the environment and the experience of these people as they're walking in the door, this is credible experience to put in a bullet point on your resume. So try not to undervalue the things that you're doing. So volunteer experience, I said here that it can be in its own section or it can be integrated into a relevant experience section. So for our sample student, she's volunteering at Lurie, and you'll notice like she's taking phone calls and transferring them, assisting nurses with simple requests. Like it's not social work, right? But the fact is she's at Lurie Children's Hospital volunteering. That could be considered a relevant experience if she wants to work in a hospital setting. Okay, so those are things to keep in mind. Notice here the verbs are past tense because this is in the past, so you want to reflect that. So additional experience, a lot of people think, well, why would I put Allstate on my resume, or the fact that I was a barista at Starbucks or doing whatever. The fact is there are a lot of transferable skills in those jobs, and you should list them. So as an office assistant, this is just general office duties. Nothing wrong with putting that on there. Okay, and then the skills section for you folks, it's going to be related to the field of social work itself. This right now is showing up in a single list, but on your resume, you could put it in column format, like in 2 columns on your resume, and that's on our sample. I'll give that to you in a few minutes. Okay, any questions about the sections of the resume before I go into final thoughts?
Okay, I have 2 questions.
Yes.
So one of them is, you would recommend, like, the bullet just be like 1 sentence, right? Like, what if it carries over? So, like, what if you're trying to be, like, specific about the type of case management services you gave into, like, what population? Mm-hmm. If it, like, carries over through, like, if it's, like, 2 sentences in 1 bullet, is that, like, not ideal, or?
It can carry on into a second line.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't recommend 2 sentences under 1 bullet.
Sure.
So you do want to work on articulating this very briefly but impactfully.
Okay.
And we can help you in the Career Services Office with that articulation if you need some help.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the skills, is it okay if it's just like, sort of like Microsoft Office, or like, because like I feel like the skills that are in the bullets are, like, I feel like I'll just be repeating them if I do skills under, like,
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
And certainly, you know, with a group of social workers, I didn't want to throw in too much in terms of software and technology. Typically, a skills section is your software as well.
Okay.
So it's Word, it's Excel, PowerPoint, Access, whatever else that you know. So yeah, definitely feel free. The skills section with the social working skills underneath it is if you really want to showcase that. If you feel it's getting buried in other parts of your resume or you didn't bring it out strongly enough, you can certainly opt to do that on your resume. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good, yes.
I noticed I know traditionally on a lot of resumes you have like an objective part at the beginning. Did I miss that or is it just not?
That's the profile.
That is the profile?
Yes.
Part of the profile.
You can, some people call it an objective, other people call it a profile. I think of objectives as more on the undergraduate level.
Okay.
So they may not have a lot of experience in their field, and that's what they're trying to do, is to get an internship. So their objective is to apply their quantitative and analytical skills to an accounting firm, right? That would be an objective. A profile is somebody with more education, a little more experience.
Okay.
It just sounds more professionally polished.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Sure, yes.
How long should things stay on your resume?
Good question. You're going to have to use your judgment about this. So jobs can go as far back as your undergraduate days. It's possible it could stretch into high school, although that might be stretching it a little bit. Other things, certainly education, you're not going to list your high school on there. It's going to be a balancing act, like how much you can get to get a full page document. So it really depends. As graduate students, again, don't be afraid to go on to a second page. If that happens, it's not the kiss of death. Don't feel like, oh, I'm not going to get called. It's going on to 2 pages. I heard it should only be 1. It's not that big of a deal. So I guess it goes on a case-by-case basis. You do have to use your judgment about what you're putting in there. And obviously, you're going to put things that make the most sense for this position that you're applying to. So maybe if you get down to the work experience and you get to Allstate Insurance and you're already running off the page, maybe you just take that out. So again, don't feel like it has to be a complete track record of everything you've done professionally. Yeah.
So with page numbers, or number of pages, do you think like 2 is enough? Like should I, because mine's at 2 full and then half a third.
So 2 at the most.
Okay, so just cut some of the experience, or like the jobs.
Yeah, anything that you feel is extraneous, feel free to let it go. Yeah, 2 pages at the very most is all you need. You're actually talking about a slightly different document. People here have probably heard of a curriculum vitae, right? Or
Yeah.
a CD,
Yeah.
right? I'm sure the faculty at this side of the room, they have multiple pages on their CDs. So that's a very different document, and that's if you're going into higher education or a research job where they're specifically asking for a curriculum vitae. So that can go on 3, 4. I worked with faculty members in the School of Public Health who had 30-page CDs.
Yeah, I have like my mentor from undergrad who's is literally probably 30 pages.
Yeah,
You can
'cause-
get, like, a copy of it.
Yeah, because they present at conferences, they're publishing, there's just all kinds of stuff on there. So it's a very different document. So with a resume, it's got to be short, to the point, brief. We're talking 1, 2 pages max.
Okay.
So if it's 2 1/4, go back and cut. Yes.
Okay, I've also been deleting certain, let's say, this is a certain responsibility I had that's not applicable to this job. Because
Yes.
I want it to get under 1 page. Is that good or?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's kosher to do that as well. Another thing you might consider if you're pressed for space, just decreasing your font size. It can be as low as 10.5. Don't go underneath 10.5 though, then it's starting to look like an eye chart at the ophthalmologist's office. It's really hard to read. Your name should be different. That's always going to be 14-point font size. Everything else should be one uniform size, and it can go down as far as 10.5. It's going to range, I think, between 12 and 10.5. So yeah, if you're pressed for space and you feel like that's going to do it, that's going to help you get on 1 page or whatever, go for that. Question?
2 questions. So I was told that if you held leadership positions, should you also put that on your resume as well?
Yes, you can certainly do that.
And then, if there was like certain, like coursework that pertains to what you did in school, should you also put that on your resume?
I don't know that that section is as effective. That information could be conveyed on a cover letter instead of taking up prime space on your resume. I think of, I'll be honest with you, I think of the related coursework section as filler for people who don't have enough for a full page.
What I mean is like, if there was like certain, like, for example, you held a town hall meeting with your cohort or something like that, would that be considered coursework, or would that be considered as relevant experience for school?
Well, if it's for your cohort in your class, here on campus you're talking about, that would be, sounds more like a course project. And it could be in a section called that. Feel free, again, the cover letter is another space for you to market those kinds of experiences. Yeah, question?
Yeah, if you have held like multiple positions with the same organization, I've seen it look different on different people's resumes. Do you have a suggestion for how that could look? Should you still list them separately, or is there another format style for that?
So you don't need to keep reiterating the company name every single time. So you would have that at the first entry, and then underneath it, just have your prior job title with bullet points and the dates.
Okay, under like the company name heading, kind of.
Yeah, just the first time, list the company name.
Okay.
And then it'll be that series of bullet points for your
I see.
current job, and then you go back in time. And speaking of time, I want to be conscious of time, so we'll keep going here, and I'll certainly give you my contact information if you want to follow up with me later. Final thoughts about the resume. We talked about this already, just don't go beyond 2 pages. When you're at a job fair or in a job interview and you have hard copies with you, you want these to look professional, so 20-pound bond paper is what I recommend. It's textured. If you hold it up to the light, it's got a watermark seal in the middle. It's just nicer looking paper. You don't want cheap Xerox paper, okay? So 20-pound, they charge by weight. So if you get 32 bond or 32 pound, it's going to be more expensive. And then either white, cream, or light gray is what I recommend for colors. Just don't go into crazy colors like pink or purple or something like that. And then references are listed on a separate sheet of paper, definitely not on your resume. Don't try and divulge this before you need to. This comes up more in the interview scenario. And avoid logos and pictures. Those are unnecessary. You don't want your photo on your resume. References, generally 3 is what they look for. These are common people, current or former supervisor, current or former coworker, a professor, longtime friend of the family, a pastor, or other authority figure. And then this is people you want to avoid: friends, relatives, someone you're only acquainted with. Won't be a very strong reference. You want someone who knows you well. There's the format. Mr., Ms., Professor, Doctor, use a title, and then their job title, organization, organization name, organization phone, organization email. You can also put their cell phone on there if you get their prior permission. Don't just put it on there and tell them later, oh, by the way, they might call you on your cell phone. Get their permission first. Okay, and same thing with references in general. Don't just put them on there and think, well, it'll be okay, I'll just let them know later. Ask them in advance. Cover letters, these are basically things that you write when you are not physically present to hand over your resume. So when you're at a job fair, you don't need a cover letter, obviously. But if you're applying online or sending it over email, you want a letter. You want it to be different from what's on your resume. That's the format. And then for advertised jobs, first paragraph, you talk about what you're applying to, where you saw it advertised. Second paragraph is the most critical. Talk about the connection between what they need and what you have, skill-wise. And then last paragraph states your course of action, how you're going to follow up. 1 page on the cover letter, that is a drop dead rule. Definitely don't send a 2-page one. They will not read it if it's 2 pages. Okay, last here, job posting websites, these are things I recommend you check out. How many people are on uiccareers.com? Like 2 people, okay, definitely check it out. Everybody in this room, if you're graduating in May, you want to look at it. That is open only to current UIC students. I think alumni have access to it up to a limited time. Indeed.com is the best website, I think, public website. It's got the most jobs. Career Builder, you might want to add that as well to your list. This is my office. We're just down the street here, down Harrison, on the corner of Racine and Harrison and SSB, 3rd floor. We have walk-in hours every day of the week during the semester. So Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, our walk-in hours are from 1 to 4, and Wednesday and Friday from 10 to 1. We will provide any service to you for career development during walk-ins with the exception of a mock interview. That has to be a 50-minute scheduled appointment. So keep us in mind. We're happy to see you anytime. We're open over the summer. Alumni have access to our office and our services advising-wise for up to 3 years after graduation. And then job fairs, workshops, seminars for the rest of your career. Those are free to you. Okay. Can I answer any other questions you might have? Yes?
Do you have extra slides?
I could provide a copy to your professor, and if somebody wants to photocopy.
I mean, you can send a picture.
And then I'm going to, if you want to take a sample resume, thank you. If you want to take a sample resume, that's what those are circulating. Was there a question? Yeah.
So for references, how long, so like I'm thinking my internship last year, can I still use like my supervisor from then, or like what's the kind of time period for that?
I would say time isn't as critical as how well they know you and in what setting they know you. So that's why a former supervisor or a current supervisor is like the best reference you could have. Their memory of you is going to be nice and fresh. They can talk about you in a very impactful way. You know, it's better than asking a friend of the family who may know you personally, but they don't know what you're like on the job. So that's a great question. Any others? Okay, well, I don't want to take any more of your time, so thank you.